Let's go to our guy that we spoke about 15 minutes on, Marvin Bagley, and his father. I guess there's a surprise other father involved in here. Caleb, did you see who that was?
Yes, that was De'Aaron Fox's dad.
The
What a
Aaron
nice
Fox.
little, what a nice little drama series you guys got going on with
Yeah,
parents.
imagine this. Like you said, we got our Westbrook and Durant, according to Dave Yeager, however many years ago, 3 years ago. Well, imagine Westbrook and Durant at their time having beef with their families having beef. Like it's ridiculous what the Kings have. The Kings drama is just like it will surprise you, but it never surprises you as a Kings fan that there is drama.
Mm-hmm. I wonder how many parents in the NBA actually don't like their son's teammates, because if you think about it, the NBA, for especially like the young guys, it kind of is like the highest level of AAU basketball. You know what I mean? Like, just in terms of like parents saying, well, my son should be playing more than their son. It's just, I wonder how many of that actually goes on that we don't see put out on social media, like what's going on with the Kings. It's actually kind of unique to see. And I don't want to say I'm enjoying it, but I'm just curious to see like how this
Just say you're
all,
enjoying it, Caleb. We
no,
get
I'm
it.
not,
You're enjoying
because I'm not enjoying it, but like, I'm kind of curious to see like what the end game is here. You know what I mean? Like,
See,
what are the
but
Kings?
here's my rebuttal to you. You're saying you're not enjoying it, but I know you are enjoying it because think about it. From an outsider, I would love to see this. This is good drama. Like this is good
It
for our
is.
podcast right now.
It is
People
good drama.
people think that we're only talking about this because it's the Kings. No, this is one of
Mm.
the hottest topics right now on sports, and as far as basketball, and it's not as far as winning or the Kings franchise, but it's just such an entertaining story. And just to recap, for those of you that don't know, I'll start it with how this all started. Marvin Bagley's dad has been upset lately about Marvin Bagley's minutes. Decided to go to Twitter at first after Marvin dropped 18 in the first half, didn't see any of the fourth quarter, only played 3 minutes in the second half. And his dad goes to Twitter and says, "Since when does Marvin Bagley get treated like this?" Something along those lines. Moves on. Everyone was like, okay, we won. The Kings won that game, and he decides to tweet that. Very selfish, odd, but whatever. Move on. The next game against the Suns, he gets benched again in the fourth quarter. And guess who decides to go on to Twitter? Yep, you guessed it. Marvin Bagley's dad. And he says, "Dear Sacramento Kings, please trade Marvin Bagley the third. Love, Coach Bagley." On that Twitter account. So the next day, guess who decides to jump into this Twitter argument? After 3 months off of being not on social media, De'Aaron Fox's dad, Aaron Fox, decides to say, trade him. And then De'Aaron decides to go on Twitter and says, Jesus Christ. So that's where all the drama started. Caleb, we both haven't heard this. Let's go to what De'Aaron Fox had to say about this whole situation on All the Smoke, our rivalry podcast.
Now follow me with this, because I'm not trying to be messy, but I just want to get your thoughts. Obviously, with recently the Marvin Bagley father
I
situation,
already
and then
know.
and then your dad said something. But yo, when I read your response to what had been said, that I really couldn't stop laughing for like three straight. You just said Jesus Christ with the exclamation, like what the fuck. Now we're in a new age, obviously, where I commend any fathers that have their kids back, and I understand the whole thing. But I don't think dads, because they're new to the social media game, understanding the power they have at the palm of their hands. So they're tweeting things that they may tell your mom or your family. Marvin's dad doing what he does. How does that? How do you guys keep that energy out of the locker room and keep you guys on the same page? Because the parents think they're just speaking, but they're not realizing that what they're saying is going to go around the world and on every news station and get all kinds of coverage.
Yeah, man. I saw it 15 minutes after the tweet went up.
Jack, you
and
see
I
his
was-
response? He just said Jesus Christ. That shit
I
had me
did,
run.
I did.
What the? He's like, what the fuck is going on?
Cause I start
right now?
I'm getting tagged and shit. I'm like, yo, what's going on? So I see it on Twitter and I'm on FaceTime. I was actually on FaceTime with my fiance at the time. I see that shit. I'm like, bro, what the fuck? I'm like, yo, now I'm about to be pulled in some shit that I didn't want to be involved in. So I text my dad, and then I text the group with my dad, mom, and brother. And I'm like, yo, y'all can't do this shit. Because regardless of if anything y'all say, motherfuckers not gonna ask y'all. They gonna ask me about it.
Right.
And I'm like, yo, y'all gotta start thinking about me before y'all put anything on the internet.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
And the thing is, like, I know my pops. You know, Mississippi born and raised. The second he probably saw that tweet, he let me tweet this shit. And did it. I know he did. He ain't think twice about it.
Right.
But for your question, like with the locker room, we said something about it, but like nobody's really worried about it, to be honest.
Yeah.
You know, his parents, it ain't nobody's thinking about that at all. Like, and people think, you know, I'm trying to do like I'm just trying to, you know, say it to the media. But like I told my people, like, yo, no one fucking tweets. Nobody give a fuck about that shit. Like,
right.
Nobody thinking about that shit. We had a practice. We had a game. Nobody's thinking about that shit. Obviously, we got our ass whooped yesterday, but we just got our ass whooped. You know what I'm saying? Fucking Kelly ain't made it. And me and Kelly played together. We played AAU together, but Kelly was fucking 1 for 40, and he hits 4 threes against us. You know what I mean? Like it was their night, and they played better than us. But as far as that tweet, that the Twitter stuff goes, man, nobody was worried about that.
There's no room for none of that in the locker room, though.
Yeah,
you know
not,
I mean?
at all. Not at all.
There's no room for none of that. And then again, Matt, you know, I'm gonna say this: shit, if Marvin didn't throw hands with Dame, shit, ain't nobody better not throw hands. Everything better be cool in that locker room.
Well, I think it's also, you know, like a teaching moment, you know, for parents, you know what I mean? Well, he had to pull up on his mom, dad, and brother. Like, you have to realize, you know, although you may feel this way, it's me that you have to think about, because your name won't be in the paper. They'll say, you know, obviously De'Aaron's dad, but it's De'Aaron that's in the spotlight, you know, and it's similar to criticism that LeVar is taking, because he's speaking on behalf of his sons, and his sons are like, yo, what the fuck? Now people are thinking this is me, but it's not me. And so it's like you said, it's a new age, and I think this is going to become the new norm. And I'm glad you guys were able to put the fire out, because you got to be able to block the good and the bad out in that locker room. Only the motherfuckers. I saw Luke Walton talk about it. I played with Luke, and I mean, I'm old school, so I know the deal.
This
all the outside noise. This nigga's crazy.
This sorry ass.
This dude is crazy.
Hey, but that ain't even more. That ain't even Bagley.
Yeah.
Hey, that ain't even Bagley MO though. Like, he a laid back cat. You know what I'm saying? Like, that ain't even him. Like, that's the little homie. Like, he ain't even no, you know what I'm saying, conversational guy like that. I knew, you know what I'm saying, it was all gonna go away. But just the fact that people on the outside, like y'all say, they got to pay attention to stuff like that, because it can affect a locker room, not knowing.
If we would have won that game, shit would have been over. Nobody would have talked about it no more, most likely. But we got blown out, and everybody think the chemistry fucked up, and now it's just a whole another thing that you got to listen to.
There's De'Aaron Fox talking about the whole situation, and I got to give a lot of respect to De'Aaron for covering that whole thing up and really explaining. He pretty much just cleared everything up as far as his end, and he didn't have to, right? He wasn't even involved in it, and that's exactly what a grown man does.
He pretty much also covered it up for Bagley too, because he was like, listen, we're all in the locker room. Like, none of us are worried about that shit. Like, that's big. And you know who does that? Leaders do that, which Fox, he's a leader. I like, that's the perfect way to handle that whole thing. Like, he said he talked to his parents about it. The locker room, they had a discussion about it, but nobody's worried about it. And that's the correct way to go about the whole thing.
Can we talk about how Marvin Bagley approached it? Because we didn't talk about it on our last podcast. Yeah. Marvin decides to go to the media the day after his dad tweets it, and the day after De'Aaron's dad tweets his tweet, and says, hey, before you guys get to the questions, if it's not about the game tomorrow, don't ask it. Like, I'm just gonna let you guys know right now. I'm not gonna answer it, so don't ask it and just hold on to it for now. I'm only answering questions about the game. Sean Cunningham and James Ham still pressed him on it, and if you listen to both of those clips, expose Marvin Bagley, and it's kind of sad because Marvin isn't able to, you know, even answer simple questions as far as, was that a distraction at all? He talks about Monday's game instead. Same thing with James Ham. He asked him a question. He talked about Monday's game. So Marvin avoiding it, that's fine. You can do that. But then at some point, look at what De'Aaron just said. And this is my argument to people that said, hey, well, Marvin avoiding it, that's fine. Yeah, it is fine. You're not causing any more drama. That's okay. But by not clearing that up, look what De'Aaron said.
Yeah.
His family, he said, look who has to answer the questions. When you guys say stuff on social media, I have to answer for you guys. Guess who has to answer for Marvin every single time Marvin's like, oh, I'm not answering it. You guys don't ask me. De'Aaron Fox. Buddy Hield. You're gonna have random guys, just like
Mhm.
Jermichael Green had to answer for Kawhi and why Paul George was missing off the backboard. You're gonna have to have guys like Rashawn and guys like Hassan Whiteside answering for why Marvin Bagley wants out of Sacramento, why he won't talk to the media about it.
Yeah. I just think like the way Bagley kind of just deflected the questions, I don't really hate it, but it's so simple and so easy to just end all the questions. It's just to do what Fox did. Just say, like, I talked to my dad about it, we're moving past it. You know what I mean? Like, just say you talk to him about it. Don't say, just ask me questions. You know what I mean? Don't ask me about that. Don't ask me that. Like, it's so simple to just get the whole thing over with. Obviously, but him saying, don't ask me questions about it, like, these guys are reporters. They have to have something to write about. And what's the hottest story right now regarding the Sacramento Kings? It's the father feud on Twitter. It's that simple. They're going to ask questions about it. They're going to press him about it. Do what Fox did. Shut the whole thing down. Just say, talk to my parents, talk to my family about it. We're going to make sure it doesn't happen again. Even if it does happen again, at least it'll clear the whole, you know what I mean? It'll clear all the smoke for a while.
How sad is it that De'Aaron's dad was the one that tweeted trade him, and Marvin's dad was the one that started this, and Marvin wouldn't clear any of it up. And guess who decides to do all the heavy work? It's De'Aaron Fox. Yeah. He didn't do anything. It wasn't his dad that said trade him. It wasn't him that said, I'm not talking to the media about it. But guess who had to answer for him? De'Aaron. So when you do that, that becomes a problem in your locker room. And that's the type of stuff you don't want to have happen.
So
I get it. Marvin's young, but he has to learn.
Fox said that they talked about the whole Bagley situation. They've got over it, right? Like, the locker room's over it. It is what it is. I wonder how Bagley feels knowing that the star team's dad just basically went on Twitter and just said trade him. Like, you know what I mean? Like, even if he wants to act grown and say it doesn't bother him, it has to eat away at his head just a little bit. Like, man, you know what I mean? Like, his dad might ruin it for him. Like, I'm saying Marvin Bagley's dad might ruin it for him to the point where, like, everybody on the team has like a closeted feeling towards him that, you know what I mean? Like,
and there were already rumors that just came out yesterday that there are a few players that are upset with Bagley, and not because of him, but because he's allowing his dad to do what he's doing, causing another distraction, and he's not doing anything about it.
And his play on the court is not justifying dealing with this much of a headache. It's just not. Like, he really, really has to open up and just be like, listen, you can't be doing this. Like, you got to stop.
And if he doesn't, then again, Kings are going to continue to have problems. And honestly, I'm kind of over.
Honestly, hoping that if the Kings were to just dump Bagley, like, we don't know what his value is. Me and you have discussed what his value is, if there is even any, what the right way to go about this is. But let's just say that they trade him away and they dump him for cheap. Do you think his dad wakes up and says, all right, I pretty much ruined that whole thing for Sacramento for him?
No.
Or do you think he's like, they traded my son for this little stuff, and then he probably goes on a rampage? And it's what I don't want to see is his dad go on a rampage if he does get traded. Because if he goes on a rampage on Twitter, it's not going to be good. Or he's going to end up tweeting some snarky shit like it's about time or new beginnings.
Yeah, no matter what happens, even if Marvin gets traded for a bag of chips, his dad's going to be like, this was such a wrong trade, but he's finally in a new home, in a fresh city, and he's going to be a lot more happy about that. I don't think the Kings will do that because, again, we talked about it. Monty McNair right now, he has a guy in Marvin Bagley that has little to no trade value. Like, it's very minimal, right? Right now, it's very hard to trade Marvin Bagley unless you're willing to trade him for pretty much nothing.
Yeah.
And on the opposite side of that, you look at a guy like Marvin, and it's like, well, if you don't trade him, yes, I've heard that his value is at its lowest. But I told Caleb this yesterday. I'm like, hey, what happens, Caleb, if Marvin Bagley, who hasn't been healthy most of his career, he just finished playing 82 games yesterday. So it took him 3 seasons to play 82 games. He just finished that. And what happens if, hey, Marvin Bagley gets hurt again? How bad does that hurt his value? Then at any point does a team even trade for him? Do you even get a second rounder for him? Because not because of Marvin's talent, because Marvin still has hope and potential, but because of the baggage, because of his family, because of the fact that he hasn't improved, and because of the fact that he's always injured, could he see any value at all if that happens?
Probably not. It's so risky right now with him. Like, he has potential, right? Like we just said that, but like you said, all the stuff added on, all the extra weight that he's having to carry right now, it's not really good. I would personally, like, someone brought up, would you want the Celtics to pick him up? And I was like, no, not really, because while he is a big, he doesn't really have a bankable skill that you can go to right now. On offense, he's kind of a ball stopper, right? Low post ball stopper in 2021. Like, that's just not an ideal player to have on the court. And on top of all that, he's injury prone. He has the parent issue right now on Twitter. It's just everything added on. We don't really have time for him to develop, and we need him right now. And with all that stuff, it's just not a good idea. I don't know about other teams, but just looking at it from the Celtics perspective, like, I don't really know what I would give up for him, to be honest with you. Like, there's not much I would give up because what he is good at right now is exactly the opposite of what the Celtics need.
And he's a hard player to satisfy. At the end of the day, he's a guy that has an ego and he wants to be in the starting lineup, which I understand, but you can't be a guy expecting to be in the starting lineup just because you're the number 2 pick. You can't be expecting the ball just because you're in the number 2 pick. Marvin's success and what Vlade promised him, which I heard was ridiculous stuff, that's not the same front office. It's not the same Marvin Bagley that you drafted on draft night. It's just not. And Marvin has to understand that. Otherwise, he's not going to have much success for the rest of his career.